Welcome, I'm Crane Johnson, a hydrologist with the Alaska Pacific River Forecast Center, bringing you your 2023 Alaska Breakup Outlook on Thursday, April 13th. We're still about 2 weeks away from breakup on our larger rivers, and so now's the time to be flood ready. Check in with your family, check with your local community, know your plans, and be prepared. When we look at the flood potential each spring, we've got three primary components we consider. The first is snowpack, and so that's snow in the watershed upstream from your location. The second component is ice thickness and strength, and so that's ice in the river at your location. And then the third most important component are spring weather patterns, and those are the late April and early May temperatures. These control both the snowmelt rate and also the thermal condition and strength of the ice. It's the snowmelt rate and the strength of the ice that drive whether we have a mechanical breakup, where we have ice jams expected, usually associated with flooding, or a thermal breakup where the ice just melts in place and there's not enough snowmelt push to break up the ice. If we look at the first component, snowpack throughout Alaska and the Yukon Territory, we can see shades of blue that indicate above average snowpack throughout the state. Those shades of blue extend into the Yukon Territory with generally a slightly above average snowpack upstream from Eagle in the Yukon watershed. That trends to near normal in the upper headwaters of the Yukon watershed, the border of the Yukon Territory and BC province. Within Alaska, the above average trend continues with above average snowpack through central Yukon watershed, the Tanana watershed, and then the Copper River Valley watershed. Compared to last year, it's slightly less than last year. We don't have those record snowpack in interior that we had last year. If we look at the Matanuska-Susitna watershed, it's above average snowpack, with one exception is that the Chulitna watershed is one of the only spots in the state where we have below average measurements for snowpack. The Kuskokwim River, similar to last year, is above average snowpack. And then basins that drain the Kotzebue Sound have well above average snowpack, including the Kobuk River Basin and the Buckland River Basin. We can also see that most of Alaska, all across the North Slope, has limited data on the Seward Peninsula and also the lower Kuskokwim River Basin. One thing we can do to fill in those gaps is to look at modeled snowpack information. And we can see from the modeled data that we expect below average snowpack along the western North Slope that trends to above average snowpack along the eastern North Slope. We can also look at the Seward Peninsula with expected above average snowpack on the southern half. And then down at the lower end of the Kuskokwim and Yukon rivers, we've got below average snowpack, which also has been reported by local observers. If we look at the few snowpack records we had this year, we had Square Lake in the upper Susitna watershed, Tulsana River in the Copper River watershed, Taslina River site, and then also the Kenny Lake site had record snowpacks this year. If we look at ice thicknesses throughout Alaska, the first thing we can do is look at accumulated freezing degree days. And throughout the state, those were near normal for the 2022-2023 winter. And that's a measure of how cold it was this winter. We can also look at our measured ice thicknesses throughout the state. And generally throughout Alaska, we had normal to slightly below normal measured ice thicknesses. And this matches well with community observations that reported in general thinner than normal ice, especially as we head west in Alaska. We had three areas with unusual ice conditions this winter. The first is the upper Yukon River, where we had freeze-up ice jams that resulted in exceptionally high water levels at freeze-up and jumbled thicker than normal ice from Circle all the way up to the Yukon border. We also had high freeze-up conditions on the Buckland River with freeze-up jams that resulted in jumbled ice on the Buckland River. And then we had a freeze-up jam downstream from Aniak that resulted in jumbled ice downstream from Aniak. And so these are three areas that we'll watch closely this spring that have thicker than normal ice compared to the rest of the state that trends from normal to thinner than normal ice. As always in the spring, think twice before you head out on ice. Know your local ice conditions, check with somebody that's knowledgeable, but think twice as ice starts to lose strength this spring. The third factor that we'll consider are spring temperatures. As we all experienced, it's been below average April temperatures so far. If we look at the 6 to 10 day CPC outlook, we've got chances for below average temperatures in southwest Alaska. That extends all the way up to Kuskokwim, all the way up to Yukon into the Yukon Territory. If we look a little further into the future, the CPC 8 to 14 day temperature outlook, we can expect below average temperatures to continue in southwest Alaska, but not as strong a signal. And those below average temperatures are expected to extend all the way up the Yukon River into the Yukon Territory. If we look a little closer at a single site, Fairbanks, Alaska, we can see we've had well below average temperatures for the last week, and then both the forecast and model guidance show continued below average temperatures as we extend into the next 10 days. The concern we have is that if these below average temperatures extend into May and then we have a sustained rapid warm up, that'll increase the flood threat and likely occurrence of ice jams as rivers break up. If we look at our 2023 conditions, we're trending towards a dynamic breakup. That's when we can have ice jams possible. Chances of flooding are increased. A thermal breakup would be when there's low snowpack, thinner, weaker than normal ice, and those are years when we don't have any significant ice jams. But based on the three factors we've considered, we're trending towards a dynamic breakup. And the spring weather conditions, April temperatures and May temperatures will really drive where this falls in terms of dynamic or thermal. Usually each year is a mix of both. If we look at our flood threat throughout Alaska, in general, based on snowpack, ice, and temperatures, we've got an above average flood potential for most areas of Alaska. The North Slope is average flood potential, and then the extreme lower reaches of the Yukon and Kuskokwim River are average flood potential. If we look at our village breakup map, we've got 3 sites with moderate to high flood potential. That's Circle on the Yukon River, Buckland on the Buckland River, and Aniak on the Kuskokwim River. And then other sites that have moderate or low to moderate flood threat, primarily due to the ice jam threat on both the Yukon and the Kuskokwim River. If we look at breakup timing this year, generally 3 to 4 days late in eastern Alaska, 4 to 6 days late in western Alaska, and then equal chances of or average breakup dates on the North Slope. Thanks for joining us. As always, keep watch on your local river conditions. You can check our website for the latest conditions. You can also use the Fresh Eyes on Ice, a citizen observer research program out of UAF, and view your local river with daily updates. As always, we appreciate any local observations. You can email those into us or give us a call at 1-800-847-1739 with your local river conditions. Thank you.